Good evening. Maybe I should have gone first because we're going to go back a bit and introduce Imperial College, just in case you don't know what it is by now. So we've just talked about this, so I was going to trumpet that, but that's you know about this. But this is an important thing, actually, because if you look at the criteria that are used for this, a lot of it is to do with the academic experience, not to do with the environmental physical experience. There are actually a variety of leagues. This is just one, it's probably the best established. And actually Imperial College will go up and down that league depending on how much the physical or the environment features in the way that the rankings are determined. So there are some challenges which you've highlighted about the physical environment that we have at Imperial. So these are some of the things that are going through our minds at the moment. Where I started with Imperial College about just under 2 years ago, with the idea of putting together a master plan. There'd been no master plan before that, except one in 1959, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And during this time, Imperial College has acquired 9 hectares, about 23 acres of land at White City as part of the White City Opportunity Area, which again I'll go on to in a minute. So in terms of creating, there is the challenge of creating a new, if the right word is campus or presence, outside South Ken. And these are some of the issues which are, you could say, are fairly straightforward, but these are ones which are actually very topical. They're topical at South Ken, but particularly at White City because there's a new settlement occurring there. So Imperial College comprised of 2 main campuses, or will. So we've got South Kensington, well established. We have Imperial West at White City over to the west, which we'll talk about in a minute. We also have a presence in 5 hospital sites. So we're woven very much in with the NHS. My job is actually to do a master plan for the entire estate. I have to say that the Yellow Star is probably going to take priority. The NHS is quite a difficult thing to work with. So going South Ken, the campus was really born out of the 1851 Great Exhibition when Albert bought land. So here's Hyde Park. This is the Albert Memorial, suitably enough. He bought this land, which goes down to the Cromwell Road, for the purposes of pleasure garden during the Great Exhibition. He then bequeathed it to the 1851 Commission, which still exists. It's an office in Imperial College, actually, which is a separate entity. He bequeathed that land for the use of, I can't remember exactly the words, but science, the furtherance of science and education, a course for the Empire at that particular time. And that's roughly where Imperial College sits now. It is pretty well discretely one city block. It's tied within that. And as you probably know, to the south here, we've got the Science Museum and the Natural History Museum. In 1956, or I think it's 1956, a new, brave new world of a master plan was conceived, which demolished awful lot of what we might call now precious architecture, leaving this vestige here. My office is here, so I'm reminded every day, it's a great view. That's the centre line that I showed you on the previous plans. So what we have now is a campus which fits into an area which is extremely well established. Like Kevin said, this has grown with time. Imperial College wasn't conceived in one day. It's actually a number of different departments, colleges, etc., coming together over the last roughly 100 years to form what we now call Imperial College. And with that, there's been an organic growth. But also what's important is, while it's become part of and has benefited from becoming, whatever we want to call it, the culture quarter, creative quarter, knowledge quarter by virtue of its neighbours, it's also grown up with a scale of city which, let's just say, is appropriate. It just goes with the long line of history. So this all fits in quite well. What we have, just going back to this, is what we have now is a legacy of the scale of the buildings is okay, but we have now, 70% of our stock was built before 1975. So now we have a legacy of actually a lot of tired and worn out building stock, with an architectural heritage which is we might find questionable. None of it is of great architectural merit even for its time. But the scale is there, and I want to go on to scale again in a minute. So these are some of the challenges that face us, and actually Kevin's talked about some of these. The ageing infrastructure, which I've talked about, so we have an issue there. It's also to do with the built environment. We have walkways. It is rather 60s in terms of elevated walkways, changes in level. Nobody knows actually what ground is. I think it's level 2, but I've been there 2 years. I haven't quite worked it out actually. So that is a problem in itself. The site does slope about 1 story from north to south. So that's why one of the reasons we have this peculiar anomaly. Amenity is not great. When I say that, I mean things like public space as much as anything. Capacity, when the master plan was conceived in 1956, try and get that right, it was actually conceived for 4,000 students. If you look at a photograph of Imperial College then, there's sort of these guys around big leather chairs with cigarettes and pipes. So the way we use universities is different now, but there are now about 15,000 students in the same place. So it is bursting at the seams. So the second last two, and the last one as well, is really linking what you were saying. It's actually, if you think about the temperament of a place like Imperial, which is very much science and technology, the overall culture of the place it's more male-dominated, and it's very studious. So it isn't naturally the most extroverted places. So the way it's grown up physically is also quite introvert, and your studies have actually borne out the concern that I've got is that it is quite an introvert place in actually a setting in the cultural quarter, which is actually quite extrovert. The Science Museum, Natural History Museum, and the V&A have learnt in the last 25 years to become much more extrovert or welcoming or approachable than they are now. So there's a question about our universities, not just Imperial, about what sort of places they're going to become in the future. How accessible are they going to be? Is this something that we share? So those are some of the challenges. I've got nothing to show you in terms of proposals because I haven't got there yet. So we're still analysing, but these are some of the issues that we've found so far about that. This is in great contrast to what we're grandly calling Imperial West, but there's not much there yet. Which is, as I said, 23 acres of land. There it is. Just to orientate you, White City Tube is here. BBC TV Centre is here. This is the Westway. Down off of here is Westfield. This is Westfield Phase 2, which has just got planning permission. This is now owned by St James, Berkeley Group, Stanhope and the BBC. This is the BBC Media Village, which the BBC is actually, I think it's an open secret, trying to offload. So there is going to be some development activity here in the longer term, and then our sites here. This is actually acquired in 2010. This is acquired last year. So this is the new addition. But this has changed the whole way we approach this. On the left, this is the opportunity area. This is topical because what we have are all those developments I've just described, which we're all saying is going to be great, bring regeneration, etc. But we are in an area which has got the White City housing estate, which is supposed to be one of the most deprived parts of Europe. It's actually a very buoyant community, having said that, so they don't like that tag at all. We're separated by infrastructure. I think I'll go on to that. So there's a concern about really the big spaceship arriving. We all say it's regeneration, but is it really going to do the locality a lot of good in terms of continuity? So the opportunity areas, there they are, at least for the west side of London. This is significant for us in terms of our relationship with Old Oak Commons. This is looking far in the future, but this is a really significant development because you have HS2, if it happens, and Crossrail going through here, and our link with this critical mass of development here. So this is quite a significant piece of development in West London. So zooming in, I think I've talked through these sites really. This is Wormwood Scrubs over here. That's the Old Oak Common area. We have Hammersmith Hospital, one of the hospitals where we have a presence. This is where we have by far the biggest presence, and next door to the jail. I'm not sure if there's any significance in that. And then the Westway. So this is our site here. If you look west, I think I've got some photographs next. Okay, so here's a bit of splurge, bit of PR. So Boris actually made this speech, the launch of Medicity, which is trying to create a triangle of Oxford, Cambridge and London as a basis of forward-thinking research as a key economic driver. He actually made this speech in Hammersmith Hospital. So this consideration is very much part of Imperial's drive. I think, no, not on this one, but it's as part of that drive. Imperial is part of that, King's is part of that, quite a few others in London. So Imperial West, what's the vision for Imperial West? That's a really good question. This is a little bit woolly, but I think the important thing to say a little bit more is this is a little bit bland, actually, but it starts to give an idea that actually we're not talking about a piece of university campus. It's not just a bit of that. Again, that's a plop. It's not a science park either. It's something where commerce, research, education come together. So actually the university is the glue that brings together incubation, that's the small guys, crucially important in terms of innovation, the big guys who are also crucially important in terms of funding and presence together with the university on the site. So this is not, you'll have education there as well, of course, there will be students, but this mix is something which we intend to be unique as a powerhouse of innovation in that part of London. So that's really expanding on that. So those are the four key components that we're thinking about in terms of, there's a lot of study being done on this, actually some of it by the business school at Imperial, about what makes innovation hubs successful, sustainable. You get some that fly very high and then crash. You get the ones that just don't take off. What really makes these work? It is actually that mixture. You have to have the right mixture. You have to have governments supporting in the right way, but not necessarily driving it, for example. So getting this balance is going to be crucial for us in effectively putting together my brief for the development. But this is it's the place as well. So this takes us to, so what are we actually giving to White City? This is a place we want to be, to be living and to be providing a centre which is probably sort of unique in some ways, which is going to offer in the best way that it can advantages to the locality. So that's the site looking east. So this is, you can see Hyde Park is over here, I think. And then looking west, slightly different, looking to the sun, sorry. This is the White City Estate. QPR football ground is over here somewhere, which they've sold. So that's another development opportunity. They're going to go over here somewhere. This is Media Village. This is the BBC TV Centre. So this is from here down off the page is the main area. So how do we knit in here, not just physically, which we'll talk about in a second, but also in terms of what we offer. So this is the master plan so far. Don't know what you think of it. It's actually a bit more developed than this, but this is just pointing out is the links. So we have the central line coming along the west side of our site. We have the West London Overground this side. We have this going over the top of it. We have the Hammersmith and City line going through here. So we're pretty well, in natural terms, cut off. So these are actually our opportunities. This is where the tube comes up above ground, and this is the only place from here down where we can cross that without creating a big climb over bridge. So it's a very difficult challenge about how we knit this in. This is a proposed link that goes under the railway, just a pedestrian link, but this would be the only link with this entire length here between Kensington and Chelsea here and Hammersmith and Fulham here. That's crucial in terms of flows through here, for example. And Anna's helped us to look at that, and we'll be doing more in future with her on that. So these are some physical challenges we have, as well as what should we call them, conceptual. Update today. As I said, the north side of the site was acquired about 4 years ago. So this already had its master plan, which is being sort of reviewed in view of the fact that we've got all of this land now. But this has actually gone ahead. So the building in grey has been built. It's a postgraduate call residence that's been operating very successfully since 2012. And this is the master plan that's been approved at the moment. So we're reviewing this in terms of that big north-south space I showed in the previous slide. This has to sort of budge over, so we get continuity going down here. So this one is already built. Then we have these two are starting on site now, actually. They started this month. And that is to provide, this is a university building, university probably departmental building, and this is an incubation building. So ThinkSpace, which is a private company within Imperial, will let this as a landlord and choose its tenants carefully so that we start to get this mix in embryonic form, but something that we want to carry on right through the master plan. We were lucky enough very recently for Michael Uren, who's an alumnus of the university, to donate £40 million to Imperial, which Imperial has matched. So actually, things are happening, and this is crucially important in terms of actually giving it the momentum, the tangibility, the fact that we're actually serious about this. Once it starts coming up, then we will start to increase the momentum of commercial and funding interest. And of course, this is crucial for us in terms of what happens south of the Westway. So finally, for Imperial West, getting the right mix and balance, I've talked about that. Keeping to brand, so if Coca-Cola come along and offer us lots of money to rent space, we've got to resist that. We've got to be very careful about who we invite in. Alignment with the locality, I've talked about image and identity. This is really important. It's the prestige of university like Imperial, but it's got to be approachable. It's got to be something that the locality feel it can go in and enjoy. Physical connections and flows, that's something that's not going away. And then interim conditions. So at the moment, it's going to take a while. We're not going to raise the site and wait. We're actually talking about sort of pop-up, short-term, temporary structures which will accommodate startup. So we'll have a phased approach in terms of occupation from today through to the permanent buildings. Thank you.